What if one of the most significant figures in the Gospels left behind a secret testimony, a profound, intimate account of the life and presence of Jesus Christ? Imagine a letter so powerful, so vivid, that it not only paints a clear and striking portrait of Jesus, but also challenges everything we've ever thought about his earthly journey. This is the letter attributed to Joseph of Arimathea, a wealthy member of the Sanhedrin who risked his reputation and even his life to bury Jesus in a new tomb. Could this letter be an authentic relic from the early days of Christianity, or is it a later creation by devoted disciples seeking to capture the essence of the one who changed history forever? Scholars debate its origins, believers are inspired, skeptics are intrigued. Yet one thing is certain, the words of this letter echo a timeless truth. The final days of Jesus through Joseph's eyes. Joseph offers a vivid account of the moments following Jesus' arrest. He describes the confusion within the Sanhedrin, the discord as they sought to convict him. In the chamber where he was tried, I saw eyes filled with anger and fear. They didn't just want to convict him, they wanted to extinguish his light forever. Yet he remained calm, without resentment, without begging for mercy. His gaze lit up the entire room, a look that both challenged evil and overflowed with compassion for his persecutors. Joseph confesses his inner struggle. When they sentenced him to death, it felt as if the world had collapsed. I asked myself, how could someone so innocent who brought hope and life be condemned as a criminal? Yet, in his eyes, I saw no despair, only a profound trust that everything was unfolding according to God's plan. The journey to Golgotha. Joseph recounts the haunting image of Jesus carrying his cross. I followed from a distance, my heart weighed down with sorrow, the jeering crowds, the brutal soldiers. And yet, he kept moving forward. When he paused to comfort the weeping women, it was as if he had forgotten his own pain. It was a love beyond human understanding. At Golgotha, Joseph witnesses the crucifixion. When the nails pierced his hands and feet, I had to look away. But when I looked again, he was gazing at his executioners with forgiveness, such immense strength. He bore not just the physical pain, but the weight of all humanity's sins. The aftermath of Jesus' death. Joseph recounts the supernatural signs that followed Jesus' final breath. The sky suddenly darkened, not as night falls, but as though the entire universe was grieving. The earth shook violently, sending people into a panic. I heard the echoes from the temple. As the veil of the Holy of Holies was torn from top to bottom, it was as if all of creation bore witness. The one who had just died was no ordinary man. He was the Son of God. These events only deepened Joseph's conviction about Jesus' true identity. A fire of faith was ignited within him, compelling him to take action. Joseph's courageous act. Despite the danger, Joseph approaches Pilate to request Jesus' body. When I stood before Pilate, my heart raced. I knew I was risking everything, yet an inner strength compelled me. As I lowered his body from the cross, I no longer saw a broken man, but the one who had given his life to redeem us all. With the help of Nicodemus, Joseph prepares Jesus' body for burial. We placed him in a new tomb, one that had never been used. As the stone was rolled into place, I knew this wasn't the end. Something deep within whispered that this story was only just beginning, a message of hope and transformation. Joseph closes with a heartfelt appeal. Don't just hear about him, seek him in your heart. He lives, not only in the memories of those who witnessed him, but in every soul willing to receive him. Let his light transform your life as it transformed mine. Joseph's letter is more than a testimony. It's a call to action. It invites us all to reflect on our personal connection with Jesus, urging us to embrace his love and redemption, even in the face of life's greatest trials. Debating the authenticity of Joseph of Arimathea's letter, fiction or genuine testimony. Joseph of Arimathea's letter has sparked both intrigue and controversy. Its moving content captivates readers, but its authenticity remains a hotly debated topic among scholars. Opinions are divided, with compelling arguments on both sides. Argument 1. The letter is a later composition by early disciples. Some scholars argue that the letter wasn't penned by Joseph himself, but was instead a later creation attributed to him. They believe it was written to strengthen Jesus' image and support the early church's mission. This perspective rests on the letter's literary style and theological depth. 1. Emotionally charged and persuasive writing style. Critics point out that the letter employs a highly emotional and evocative tone, emphasizing Joseph's spiritual transformation and courage. Such language aligns with early Christian literature, aimed at inspiring faith and reinforcing belief. Phrases like piercing eyes, a light to guide, and boundless compassion serve not just as descriptions, but as rhetorical devices to evoke a powerful response from readers. 2. Strong theological assertions. The letter goes beyond narrating events. It makes bold theological statements, such as Jesus being the truth we have awaited and the Son of God. Critics argue these declarations reflect theological reflections developed by the early church, rather than immediate observations from a contemporary eyewitness. 3. Constructed from oral tradition. Another view is that the letter represents an effort to preserve oral traditions about Jesus rather than a first-hand account. Early Christian communities often used the names of significant figures like Joseph to lend credibility and authority to their writings. Argument 2. The letter reflects genuine testimony from Jesus' time. Conversely, some scholars contend that the letter could be an authentic document, or, at the very least, a faithful reflection of Joseph's real experiences. 1. Joseph's ability and motivation to write. As a member of the Sanhedrin, Joseph was a learned and influential figure with access to the education necessary to write such a letter. Given his unique role in the gospel narrative, he had a strong motive to document his experiences with Jesus, preserving the truth for future generations. 2. Consistency with the Gospels. The descriptions in the letter align remarkably well with the Gospel accounts, particularly in depicting Jesus' mission and character. For instance, the letter highlights how Jesus reached out to marginalized individuals, women, children, and the poor. Luke and Matthew. 3. Vivid personal details. The letter includes specific lifelike details that seem characteristic of an eyewitness account. Joseph describes the weight of Jesus' body as it was lowered from the cross, the tremors that shook the earth, and the sound of the temple veil tearing. Such details lend an air of authenticity, suggesting first-hand experience rather than a fabricated narrative. 4. A nuanced depiction of Joseph's inner conflict. The letter portrays Joseph as a man torn between his societal duties and his emerging faith. He admits to initial fear and hesitation, yet ultimately makes a courageous decision to request Jesus' body from Pilate. This transformation is consistent with a person living in a complex and fraught historical context. Unresolved questions. Despite strong arguments on both sides, the question of the letter's authenticity remains unanswered. Some scholars propose a middle ground. The letter could be a fusion of genuine tradition and later editorial additions by the Church to serve its evangelizing mission. A timeless spiritual message. Regardless of its origins, the letter's spiritual impact is undeniable. It offers a profound reflection on Jesus' transformative power, not only in Joseph's life, but in the lives of all who encounter him. Whether historically factual or symbolically rich, the letter invites readers to engage deeply with their faith and reflect on their personal relationship with Christ. Spiritual significance, a timeless message. While the authenticity of Joseph of Arimathea's letter remains a subject of debate, its spiritual value is undeniable. Through its deeply emotional and reflective words, the letter offers profound insight into the transformative power of Jesus, not only in Joseph's life, but in the life of every believer. 1. Transformation from within. Joseph of Arimathea's story begins with him as a conflicted man, torn between his faith and his position in society. As a member of the Sanhedrin, he was part of a powerful and influential religious body in Jewish society. The Sanhedrin represented tradition and rigidity, where any form of change was seen as a threat to the established order. In this context, Jesus, who preached love, mercy, and challenged rigid laws, was not merely a controversial figure, he was a potential disruptor. Yet as Joseph witnessed Jesus' teachings and actions, he began to see that Jesus was no ordinary teacher, but the embodiment of God's truth and love. Jesus didn't just speak of love, he lived it. Through every action, every miracle, even in moments of profound suffering. He didn't merely preach love, he embodied it in everything he did. He loved even his persecutors, forgiving those who hurt him. Joseph realized that Jesus' love wasn't confined by societal rules or boundaries. Jesus embraced tax collectors, healed lepers, and engaged with Gentiles, actions that made him a threat to the religious elite. For Joseph, these acts weren't just challenges to societal norms. They were invitations to reevaluate his own faith. Joseph's inner transformation wasn't instantaneous. It was a long journey marked by inner conflict. He struggled with fear, uncertainty, and the desire to maintain his safe distance. Yet each time he heard Jesus preach or witnessed his miracles, Joseph's conviction grew stronger. His conversion reached its peak during the darkest moment of Jesus' life. When most of Jesus' closest followers fled in fear, Joseph made a bold, life-altering decision. He approached Pilate and requested permission to bury Jesus in his own tomb. This decision was not made lightly. Joseph knew that associating himself with a condemned man could jeopardize his reputation, his position, and even his life. The Sanhedrin could label him a traitor, and he could face severe consequences. But at that moment, faith overcame fear. I couldn't let his body be left to humiliation. This was the least I could do to honor and show my love for him, the one I knew to be the Son of God. This act was not just an expression of respect, it was a public declaration of faith. Joseph, once a silent observer, became a courageous witness, standing for truth and justice regardless of the cost. His transformation is profoundly symbolic. It shows that genuine faith is not just intellectual assent or emotional feeling, it is action. Faith is not meant to remain static within the heart. It is a flame that drives us to take bold steps, even when those steps come with great risk. Joseph's story reminds us that conversion isn't limited to the poor or marginalized. It is for everyone, including those in positions of privilege and power. Through Jesus, Joseph discovered a value greater than societal approval or worldly security, the love and salvation of God. 2. Faith must be demonstrated through action. Joseph's letter carries a powerful message about the nature of faith. True faith cannot remain theoretical or confined to words. It must be lived out through concrete actions, especially in moments of challenge and adversity. Joseph could have chosen to stay silent, to protect his status and reputation. As a Sanhedrin member, he had everything: status, influence, and the respect of his peers. Aligning himself with Jesus, A man condemned to die a criminal's death would have seemed like madness to those around him. But Joseph didn't let fear or social pressure stop him. He acted. He approached Pilate, publicly aligning himself with Jesus at a time when doing so could cost him everything. His action wasn't driven by personal gain or a desire for recognition. It stemmed from a deep commitment to the truth he had found in Jesus. When faith calls, act. Face your fears and do what is right, even if it costs you everything. Joseph understood that faith is not merely a personal belief. His actions were a bold testimony to the transformative power of faith. By risking everything to ensure Jesus' burial, Joseph became a living witness to the strength and courage that true faith inspires. His story emphasizes that faith cannot be separated from justice and compassion. In a world filled with injustice and division, Joseph's courage reminds us that faith must lead to positive change. It must inspire us to stand for truth and protect the vulnerable, even when it demands sacrifice. The journey of Joseph illustrates a core principle of Christian life. Faith without works is dead. James 2:26. Joseph didn't just believe in Jesus, he acted on that belief, and his actions played a pivotal role in the gospel narrative. For him, burying Jesus wasn't merely a humanitarian act. It was a public profession of faith in Jesus as the righteous one and the Son of God. A lesson for today. In today's world, marked by widespread injustice and inequality, Joseph's story offers a profound challenge. Faith is not meant to be hidden or confined to personal rituals. It requires us to stand up and act, especially when confronted by oppression, moral dilemmas, and societal pressures. True faith calls us to step out of our comfort zones, to advocate for truth, and to serve others. It challenges us to defend the weak, speak out against injustice, and practice radical compassion. Each small act of courage and kindness becomes a living testament to the transformative power of faith. Do not be afraid to act on your faith. Let every deed become a testimony to God's love and justice. 3. The power of courage and sacrifice. Joseph of Arimathea knew that his decision to request Jesus' body for burial would have serious consequences. As a prominent member of the Sanhedrin, he risked being labeled a traitor by his peers, facing expulsion from the religious council and losing his social standing and wealth, things he had spent a lifetime building. Yet for Joseph, truth and justice could not be silenced by fear. He understood that regardless of the risks, he had to do the right thing. The bravest act is to stand for what is right, even when no one else will. Joseph didn't wait for others' approval or seek public acclaim. His actions reflected a steadfast faith and a deep courage, born from knowing what God was calling him to do. Joseph's story teaches us that faith isn't always welcomed or understood by society. Living out one's faith in a world marked by injustice can lead to isolation, loss, or even persecution. But Joseph's journey reminds us that it is precisely in these moments of challenge that we find the opportunity to display true courage. Do not fear sacrificing for your faith. Your courage and sacrifice will serve as the strongest testament to God's presence in your life. 4. Conversion is for everyone. Joseph's story reminds us that Jesus' love and salvation extend beyond the boundaries society imposes. In the world of Jesus' time, rigid divisions based on class, status, and religious identity were deeply entrenched. The poor, the sick, and those labeled as sinners were often marginalized, while the wealthy and powerful were revered. Yet, Jesus consistently defied these societal norms. He didn't merely care for the outcasts, he reached the hearts of those in power as well. No matter who you are or where you come from, Jesus can transform your life. Despite his wealth and influence, Joseph experienced a spiritual emptiness that only God's truth and love could fill. He discovered that no amount of status or material success could replace the peace and purpose found in a relationship with Jesus. This message of universal conversion is deeply relevant in today's world. Modern society still struggles with divisions based on wealth, power, and social status. Invisible walls of privilege and exclusion create isolation and prevent genuine connection. But Joseph's story reminds us that in God's eyes, we are all equal. His love knows no limits, and His grace is available to everyone, regardless of their background. Within the church and broader Christian community, we see individuals from all walks of life, from those living in poverty to accomplished business leaders. Jesus' love is not reserved for one particular group. He invites all to come to Him, and anyone who opens their heart to His presence will be transformed. Conversion is not exclusive to any class or condition. It is a gift freely given to all who seek it. Joseph's transformation illustrates that salvation is not confined to the margins of society. Even those who appear to have everything by worldly standards still need the grace and redemption that only Jesus can provide. Through his love, Joseph found a calling far greater than any earthly title or possession. His story challenges us to look beyond societal labels and recognize that everyone, regardless of their circumstances, is in need of God's transformative love. In embracing Jesus, we too are called to live as witnesses of His boundless compassion and redeeming power. 5. A call to a living faith. Joseph of Arimathea's letter closes with a powerful and urgent appeal, reminding every believer that faith is not merely a collection of rules or religious rituals. Instead, faith is a vibrant, deep relationship with Jesus Christ, a relationship capable of transforming every aspect of our lives. Through his spiritual journey, Joseph came to understand that genuine faith is not blind adherence to laws or traditions. He lived in a society where religion was tightly bound by strict rules and regulations. Yet in encountering Jesus, Joseph realized that true faith is a dynamic connection with God, one that brings freedom, hope, and boundless love. If we let Him into our lives, we will never be the same. This statement from Joseph is not just an affirmation, but a personal invitation to all, regardless of their background or past. Jesus doesn't come to change a small part of our lives. He comes to renew us completely, bringing meaning, joy, and peace. Joseph didn't merely acknowledge Jesus through his teachings or miracles. He allowed Jesus to enter his innermost being, illuminating the darkest corners of his soul. In this personal relationship, Joseph was transformed, from a man who once feared societal pressure to a courageous witness who stood boldly for what was right, even at great personal cost. A question for reflection. Joseph's story challenges us to ask, have I truly allowed Jesus to enter my life? Is my faith active and transformative, or is it confined to routines and rituals? Joseph became a living witness, not only because of what he believed, but because of how he acted on that belief. By boldly requesting to bury Jesus, Joseph demonstrated that faith cannot be confined within the walls of a temple or limited to personal prayer. Living faith manifests in concrete actions, in choices that require sacrifice and courage. Faith in action. We are invited to live out our faith in the same way, not merely through declarations, but in how we treat others, how we advocate for justice, and how we share God's love with the world. Living faith is when your life reflects the love and light of Jesus. A universal invitation. Joseph's letter wasn't just meant to recount his story. It was written to inspire all who would read it. He calls everyone, regardless of age, status, or background, to encounter Jesus and allow Him to transform their lives. In today's world, full of uncertainty and turmoil, Joseph's invitation is more relevant than ever. We need a living faith to guide us through life's challenges, to bring purpose and meaning, and to be a source of light for those around us. Let Jesus into your heart, and he will bring you eternal life and a hope that never fades. Conclusion: Joseph of Arimathea's letter, regardless of its form, remains an inexhaustible source of inspiration for believers and seekers of truth. It not only tells of a historical Jesus who walked the dusty roads of Palestine, but introduces a living Jesus, one who offers hope to the weary, love to the forgotten, and salvation to all who seek him. Joseph's story goes beyond a courageous historical act. It stands as a powerful testimony to the transformative power of faith. From a cautious and reserved man, Joseph became a bold witness, unafraid to face consequences in fulfilling his duty to the one he believed to be the Son of God. Through his letter, we are reminded that every person can have a personal encounter with Jesus. What matters is not where we start, but our willingness to let him transform and guide our lives. He is not just a figure of the past, but a living presence, walking with us and changing us every day. Open your heart to him, and let every step of your life bear the marks of his love, hope, and salvation. Just as Joseph stepped out of the shadows to bear witness to the light, we too are called to live our faith boldly and authentically. His story reminds us that faith, even when tested, can become a source of strength and joy in our lives. This letter, like a light cutting through the fog of history, invites us to move forward with unwavering confidence that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life.